guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. My name is Stacy.
I'm Jason.
And thank you for joining us today. Before we start, let's say the grace. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Amen. And before we start, Job, what's the topic for today?
Yeah, so today's topic is appearance versus reality.
Yeah, appearance versus reality. And I just want to bring us back from where we came from the beginning of 2021. And we have been doing the Cornerstone together with Deserved Ages. We're currently in chapter 22 of Deserved Ages. And we're in the fourth lesson of this quarter of the Cornerstone. And just a brief background about what we've been doing since the beginning of 2021 is that we've been looking at the life of Christ and also John the Baptist. He's made an appearance in one way or another in between. And from the beginning, we see how both of these two characters were the birth was prophesied, how the angels appeared to Mary and Zachariah, and then how after the birth the parents said a song of thanksgiving or a song of praise for Zachariah. It was a prophetic form of poetry, something like that. And then about Christ, we see that from the beginning, especially remember the story about the star, and then the prophetic message about the star, and they failed to see or to identify who Christ was, like the wise men, the shepherds, and also when you go
I think
forward,
they both identified, rather they refused to accept. The problem was acceptance.
Yeah.
Because when the wise men come, they identify that the Messiah is born in this place.
Yeah.
And they also are told that this star represents the Messiah, but they fail to accept.
Yeah. And I think that's mostly because they failed to also, like they focused so much on the appearance rather than the reality. You've seen. So,
yeah.
And
so that is also, Christ. That is Christ's version of appearance and reality.
Yeah, and also like when you look at remember the part where Simon and Anna were in the temple, and Simon had prayed to God that he should not die without seeing the Messiah, and then after seeing him, he says that, I think it's in Luke, if I'm not sure, yeah, in Luke, he says that in verses 29, chapter 2, verses 29, it says that, Lord, now you're letting your servants depart in peace according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared before the face of all people, a light to bring revelation to the Gentiles. So the part that I really want to bring in, that I remember here, is verses 34, Luke chapter 2, verses 34, and it says, Then Simon blessed them and said to Mary his mother, Behold, this child is destined for the fall and rising of many in Israel, for a sign which will be spoken against. And then it says, yes, a sword will pierce through your own soul, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed. And just to forward it, when Christ had gone to the temple and he amazed the scholars there, and the parents, when they were going home and they realized that Christ wasn't among them, and during that process, when Christ, are you seeing another one?
Yeah.
When
the parents find him at the temple,
and
his
then
response to
he was like, why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business? And then now, verses 50, it says, but they did not understand the statement which he spoke to them. One thing that I wanted to bring here is that the fact that people really didn't understand Christ's mission here on earth. they didn't understand. And also something that we're going to also see today when we're going to focus on John the Baptist is that John the Baptist also did doubt about he
He
was
doubted
doubtful
his
about
reality.
if this was truly the Messiah, because he too was hoping for a king, someone who's going to overrule.
In a moment of weakness, he
Yeah,
doubted.
in a moment of weakness. But again, something that we're going to also see is that he asked his two disciples to go and see and confirm whether this indeed was the Messiah, and for Christ to also assure the disciples that he is the Messiah, and they need not doubt John the Baptist's faith and his mission here on earth. So before I digress further, um, okay, let me just say this. Another similarity about John the Baptist and Christ is that they both called out sin. They pointed out sin. They they were bold enough to, speak out and say that this is not right and things like that. And now back to John the Baptist, you see a humble man, and John the Baptist preached with a lot of power, with a lot of vigor, and many people thought that he had the power of Elijah or Moses, or he came back in the spirit of Elijah or Moses. And just something about John the Baptist is that John grew up knowing that he would always come second to the first, and the first was, to the first, Christ. Second to the first. His mission, like he will come to prepare in the way of the Lord. And just to remind us, there's this time when Herod divorced his wife, and then after divorcing his wife, he married the second, his half brother's wife, Herodias. And John the Baptist took it upon himself to tell Herod that whatever you're doing is adultery, you're committing adultery. And Herod understood what he said, but Herodias didn't take it well, and she wanted to kill John the Baptist because she felt like John the Baptist was interfering with the marital affairs and things like that. And during this period, katika hiyo harakati, now I don't know, do you want to take it up from there?
No, just bring the story in there.
Okay. So we see Herodias, this lady wanted to kill John the Baptist simply because she didn't approve of the fact that John the Baptist was telling the truth, and she didn't want, I don't know, maybe she just loved Herod, but it was a sin. It was passion. A sin. It was passion and lust maybe, and we see that one time King Herod had a celebration or an event in the palace. Is it the palace? And when they were making merry, and people came to entertain them, Herodias' daughter came, and she entertained them. And one thing I remember Brother Williams telling me, Brother Williams, not William, Williams, hi, if you're watching this, hi, bless you. He said there's something that I problem is I didn't highlight that verse, but and so I'm going to read from the book of Mark chapter 6 verses 22 onwards, and it says, and when Herodias' daughter herself came in and danced and pleased Herod and those who sat with him, the king said to the girl, ask me whatever you want and I will give it to you. He also swore to her, whatever you ask me, I will give you up to half my kingdom. Now, what I wanted to, mention here is what Brother Williams told me when we were when we were reading this last year, sometime last year, was that sometimes parents and also we ourselves give promises, and it's like we're blind. We're usually very much overjoyed, and then we end up giving promises that cannot be fulfilled or can be fulfilled, but it's very absurd. I don't know, something like that. In that you can't just say, I will give you anything. What do you mean? You know. So on this part,
I mean, it was not wrong for him to promise give him anything.
no, but you can't, you just can't say, like, as a parent, Kwanzaa, he was speaking, the way he explained it to me, it was like, as a parent, if you promise your child, if you pass, I'll give you anything that you want.
Okay, it's
And you
too
have
much
to fulfill,
freedom. Yeah, it's too
and you
much
have to
freedom
fulfill
for
that promise. You get. So, also another thing that we read from, this story about John the Baptist, his imprisonment and death, is that Herod, together with other officials, were drunk. And we know that Herod first really truly respected John the Baptist. And that's why when John the Baptist told him, whatever you're doing is wrong, he wasn't angry or bitter. He wasn't, he was just in awe of uh, the power and authority that John the Baptist had. He only felt a bit threatened because his position would have been overthrown, but he did respect John the Baptist. So at this moment when they were making merry, enjoying, and when the effects of alcohol, yeah, we saw it with Noah. We've seen it with Noah and his children. We've seen it in Lot.
Yeah, partially, but
Partially,
not fully.
but we've seen it with Noah.
Yeah, Noah is a very good example of.
He's a very good example of consumption of alcohol, and also Herod, because when the daughter said that I want John's head, none of them, like none of the officials opposed. Neither did he.
He took an oath and he promised in front of.
Yeah,
so alcohol.
It was a consequence.
Yeah,
it was a consequence of his actions, of his words, and so thus henceforth we see John the Baptist being beheaded. But before we get there, there's so many things that we've jumped in the story, and we want to look into it.
So let's look back into the minor details now. So I like to bring the issue of success in this whole story. That is success in John's pattern and the many characters that we have in the story that we're handling today. So Stacey, what's your definition of success? What do you yourself? What do you see yourself? What success have you achieved? And if you've not achieved, what do you look to achieve? And what's your definition of success as a person?
I think success to me is something that is, I don't know, that brings you peace and happiness or joy. Let me just say joy and peace. In that, if you wake up in the morning, you do something, it brings you joy, and you're peaceful about it, then that is success. Like if you go to sleep, you don't stress. I mean, that is success.
So
success is, I don't know, success is just in the little things, littlest of details.
So do you categorize yourself as having achieved success?
Yeah.
You have achieved success.
Yeah, in so many little ways.
Okay, so give us one iconic moment that you categorize yourself as success.
Today you've decided.
It's me and you all the way.
Success. I don't know.
Okay.
But I'd say that for me, my success is impacting people's lives. This year, yeah, I think I'll just mention, I think some
Okay,
typical
so
failures, but yeah,
she has
impacting people's
so
lives.
so we see success in very different points of view from the story. We have John, who successfully completed his mission in being the forerunner for Christ, and we also have okay, though in a negative way, in a good way, we have Herodias' daughter, who was successful in dancing and pleasing the king. We also have who? Christ was successful. John achieves success in bringing Christ's mission, and he kind of doubts his mission at one point or the other. He doubts. So we're talking about John's success and the various success that we see these people achieving in this story. Um, the success I want to talk about is how do we handle success in our different capacities. Looking at how Herodias' daughter handled her success and what she asks for after achieving this success is one key thing that we need to notice. Is something that we need to notice and caution ourselves. I was okay. What was I thinking of? I was thinking of this issue whereby people are paid salary and then before the end of the month they're like, I need to start saving, and then once they receive the money,
Goals. Tomato goals.
partying after partying, So how we handle our success in our different capacities is really something that is important, and we need to not forget the struggles that came before this success, and we end up misusing. We forget our realities, and we are stuck in the appearance of what we have at the moment. Um, Another thing that I'd like to talk about is how was John really successful? Uh, okay, bearing in mind that when we are handling the story of him calling out Herod for being promiscuous, let me use the word promiscuous, or be committing adultery, was John really successful at that moment?
I think so, yeah, to some extent, in that uh, it's the reason why, I mean, Herodias was bitter about it, about the whole thing. Because if you can tell someone you've done something wrong, and then they're like, okay, but it doesn't bite them.
But look at it. John died for calling out on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
was he really successful at that point? So success is let me call it a two street thing, because at times we might be expecting something but we receive something else, but in its own way it's success in its own way, because John achieved what he was looking for because he called it out and it was noted that this was wrong. But even though his mission was, besides him calling on this sin and him doing calling out on Herod's wrongdoing, his mission as as being a forerunner for Christ was successful in its being, yeah. And another thing before I forget, uh, him doubting him doubting Christ's mission was
Oh, Christ was.
John's moment of weakness is subject to him being in this state whereby he's calling out on sin, but yet he's getting the wrong end of the stick. And it's all of us get to this point whereby we have done good, but yet we receive the wrong kind of, you are being helpful to someone, but you end up getting you get wrong for good. You do good, but you get wrong out of it.
This my daddy. Sometimes when daddy might say something
Oh yeah.
like
So it's another harsh reality that he faced, but he's encouraged by, at the end of it all, noting that Christ performs his mission successfully. He is encouraged by the fact that Christ he never really understood the mission of Christ, but hearing about the good deeds that Christ performs reassures him that his mission was not in vain. And so, talking about success, I wanted to note another nice part about this thing is, as human beings, achieving success is not a one person thing. Even Christ himself, okay, though us achieving salvation was solemnly upon him, in his earthly duties, Christ needed assistance for his success. He needed assistance, and that was, he had disciples, and his disciples also played a key important role. And I was just thinking, for disciples who died, who were martyred just before just after Christ's resurrection, were they successful in their mission? And yes, they were successful because they had served Christ and they had helped Christ in proclaiming his mission. So it's something that we all need to learn, that man is not an island. Let me use that phrase. We all require assistance, and let's learn to ask for assistance when we need it to achieve the success that we seek in life. Yeah, I like to stop at that.
And as we also wind up, as we are reading the story about John the Baptist, his imprisonment and his death, there's that moment. I mean, that the disciples, together with John the Baptist, questioned whether, if indeed Christ was the Messiah, and the fact that John the Baptist was meant to, prepare the way for Christ, why is it that when John the Baptist was arrested, Christ didn't do anything? John, why?
That was
Why?
that was not part of Christ's mission, and it was out of that will be him going out of his way and being a royal king rather than Messiah.
Yeah, true. And just something that Christ mentioned also is that in Luke chapter 7 verses 28, it talks about how, it's Christ said that among those who are born of women, there's no other greater prophet as John the Baptist. That is,
that was John's reward for
yeah,
his service, and that's what climaxed John's mission as being successful, because Christ regards him as being greater than what?
greater than all other prophets
That is
that had
Matthew
preceded
11
them.
verses 11. Truly I tell you, among those born of women, there has not risen anyone greater than John the Baptist. Yet whosoever is least in the kingdom of heaven, yet whosoever is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he.
Yeah. And just to finish up now, our topic for today was appearance versus reality, and it's the same thing like we see even when John the Baptist was arrested. He wasn't quite sure about whether Christ was indeed the Messiah until his two disciples came back with, the word that this is what Christ did, and that's assured him, as Job had said.
Assistance.
Yeah, and then
they boosted his faith.
Yeah, and then another thing. Okay, another thing is, as we go forward, we will see how Herod was fearful that perhaps Jesus had come in the spirit of John the Baptist, and that's why he was scared that maybe John the Baptist amerudi kumua or something like that. That is what Desire of Ages says towards the end. And from the, I think that's another aspect of appearances versus reality. Like what you see is not really the reality. And yeah, I think we can finish up.
So please share more on what parts of the story that you felt that were more of, they had a different correlation with the appearance of what they saw and what was actually the reality. So we'll finish at that. So please like, share, and
comment, tell us what you think.
So we'll finish at that. So Bye till next time.
Bye.